Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 8 based on novel. So let's start. Dust rose and gradually fell on the ground which lay in ruins while the tall young man smilingly stood beside the bonfire. However, his smile caused the four powerful generals by the side to feel a chill sweep through their bodies. The strange and condescending looks which originally filled their eyes slowly receded. The person whom Lin Dong had sent flying with a single punch earlier was of similar strength with them. Although there were only a short span of time to react, he had still been able to bring out the defensive technique that he specialized in to respond to Lin Dong's attack. Even they would find it quite troublesome to deal with that turtle armor defense earlier. It was basically impossible for them to break it with a single punch like Lin Dong had done. The young man before them did not waste his breath with any unnecessary words in the face of their doubt. He merely used a simple and barbaric punch to make them to swallow all the doubt in their mouths. At this moment, even the most foolish person understood that the strength of the young man before them was not limited to what they could see on the surface. The bonfire rose as firelight shined onto the faces of the four. Their expressions fluctuated in bewilderment. It was a long while later before their tensed bodies slowly relaxed. Like I asked before, have you had your fun yet? Little Flame, who had been wordlessly standing by the side, finally laughed coldly and remarked. There was a sharp ferocity in his eyes as he stared at the four of them. Don't be angry, Brother Yang. The rough-faced man with a bare upper body hurriedly smiled and spoke when he heard this. This is an important matter and is related to the lives of everyone here and our subordinates. Hence, we must be cautious. Little Flame stared at that person. Those scarlet tiger eyes caused one to shudder. All of you should stop entertaining other thoughts. If I want to be blunt about tomorrow, my brother and I are sufficient to deal with it. As for the deep dark ghost seals on your bodies, I think we should just leave them as they are. The four of them smiled awkwardly. They were clearly extremely afraid of Little Flame and did not dare to say anything in response. Ha ha, please do not mind him too much. Little Flame has a bad temper. Everyone understands the importance of the matter tomorrow. Hence, we will need to rely on you when the time comes. Lin Dong smiled. He paused for a moment before continuing, however. I believe that no one here has any doubts about me now, right? What are you saying, Brother Lin Dong? We are the ones who offended you first. The four of them hurriedly said. However, they did not feel the slightest friendliness when they saw Lin Dong's smile. Instead, they felt waves of terrifying danger. If they had to choose, they felt that Little Flame, who constantly chose to expose his ferocity, was a little more comforting than this smiling big brother of his. Bang! The distant mountain wall cracked and a somewhat miserable figure rushed out. After which, he once again landed beside the bonfire. Green and red color interchanged on his face. However, he eventually cupped his hands together towards Lin Dong. Brother Lin Dong is really strong. It is us who were blind previously. Everyone, please state your identities. Little Flame walked over and snorted coldly. Brother Lin Dong, I am the Metal Lion General, Chen Tong. The rough-faced man with bare upper body cupped his hands together and smilingly said. Demon Ape General, Mo Hu. A man with two exceptionally long arms and large hands grinned. Golden Eagle General, Jiao Ling. The somewhat skinny man with penetrating eyes said. Leopard General, Gya. The man, who had a metal-like black tail entwined around his waist, cupped his fists together and said. Mountain Armor General, Po Shan. The last person who spoke was the man, who had been sent flying by Lin Dong with a single punch. Lin Dong cupped his hands towards them and chuckled, Lin Dong. The atmosphere relaxed slightly after all of them introduced themselves. After Po Shan's example previously, the five generals did not dare to underestimate Lin Dong. That punch from Lin Dong earlier was sufficient to deter them. Hand your arms to me. I will help all of you undo the deep dark ghost seal. Lin Dong sat down and looked towards the five. He did not waste any time with unnecessary words. He was clearly aware of the biggest doubt within these 5 individuals' hearts. The reason they had agreed to fight together with Little Flame was largely because they had heard that Lindong could remove the deep dark ghost seals within their bodies. Chen Tong and the rest were startled when they saw how straightforward Lindong was. After all, this was a kind of bargaining chip he could use against them. Ha ha, Brother Lindong is truly magnanimous. Chen Tong was the first to smile. After which, he extended his arm, revealing a black seal. However, its color was deeper than that of Little Flame. Clearly, this deep dark ghost seal had already deeply submerged into his body. Lindong's palm landed on Chen Tong's hand as threads of black light flickered at his fingertips. Soon after, white smoke began to rise from the latter's arm. The deep dark ghost seal faintly let out a screech. It continued to squirm on his arm, appearing like a strange face. The few people by the side anxiously watched this scene. None of them dared to breathe too loudly. The strange face continued to wiggle while black light danced at Lindong's fingertips as the deep dark ghost seal gradually began to fade. A dozen minutes later, the black light on Lindong's hand brightened as he curled his hand and grabbed. One could only watch as the deep dark ghost seal on Chen Tong's arm was directly extracted. After which, it turned into a black light seal that appeared in Lindong's palm. The black seal appeared like the face of a ghost as it swam around Lindong's palm. It emitted a dark and evil ripple. This, has it been removed? Chen Tong and the rest were startled as they looked at the deep dark ghost seal on Lindong's palm. Wild joy began to surge within their eyes. Lindong smiled and nodded. He closed his hand and shattered the deep dark ghost seal. Black light flashed on his palm as devouring power surged, directly swallowing the seal. Brother Lindong is indeed extraordinary. Chen Tong spoke excitedly. They were well aware of how difficult it was to deal with this deep dark ghost seal. They had thought of many methods, but this thing was like a maggot in their bones, leaving them helpless against it. Yet, Lindong had removed the seal in an extremely relaxed manner. I happen to possess a method to subdue this thing. Lindong replied smilingly. By relying on the devouring ancestral symbol within his body, Lindong was obviously able to destroy this seal from its root. Did you really think that I was lying to you before? Little Flame frowned and demanded. Ha ha, please don't be angry, Brother Yang. It's just that even you should know of how powerful this deep dark ghost seal is. Chen Tong laughed in an embarrassed manner. It was true that they only had a 50% trust in Little Flame's words from before. Lindong waved his hand. He looked at the other 4 generals who were staring at him. Who's next? Me? My turn. The 4 of them cried out in unison. However, their faces quickly reddened, before they smiled awkwardly and gave in to each other. Only then did they let Po Shan, whom Lindong had punched earlier, to go first. Hee, Brother Lindong, I have offended you earlier. I hope that a great man like you can forgive me. Po Shan smilingly said to Lindong. There was some intention to fawn over Lindong in his voice. Lindong grinned. He extended his hand and repeated what he did earlier. A dozen minutes later, the deep dark ghost seal in Po Shan's body was sucked out. Po Shan rubbed his now black seal-free arm. His eyes had become a little red from emotion. It was likely that he felt extremely terrible living this prisoner-like life under the control of another. Subsequently, Lindong used the same method to destroy the deep dark ghost seals in the bodies of the other 3 individuals. All right, the deep dark ghost seals in your bodies have all been removed. Lindong patted his hands and smiled at the rather emotional 5 great generals. Thank you, Brother Lindong. Chen Tong and the rest hurriedly voiced their thanks. The removal of this bomb from their bodies was clearly a great relief to them. Lindong gently smiled and shook his head. We are all on the same boat. It is only natural for me to help. Brother Lindong, aren't you afraid that we might simply leave after helping us remove the deep dark ghost seal? After all, dealing with Xushong involves a great risk. Jiao Ling's sharp eyes suddenly looked at Lindong and asked. The faces of the other 4 stiffened after those words were said. Little Flame by the side also slightly leaned his body forward. His eyes were ferocious and frightening. However, there was no change in Lindong's expression. He merely stared at the bonfire as he said, "The matter tomorrow is indeed quite dangerous. However, I will say first something that might seem like a joke to all of you. Even if only my brother and I were to act tomorrow, Xu Song will definitely die. However, things might be a little more troublesome without everyone." Lindong paused. He raised his head and looked at the various expressions on the faces of the five. Finally, he smiled. "That is all." The area around the bonfire was a little quiet. Chen Tong and the rest gazed at the young face in front of them. Although the latter had a gently smile on his face, they could gradually detect an unfathomable feeling from under that smile. No wonder even someone as ferocious as Little Flame was willing to call him Big Brother. The person before them was not a simple individual. Xu Song has yet to step into the samsara stage. Moreover, even if he has really reached that stage, he might not necessarily win, ha ha. I hope that everyone will not think that I do not know my limits by speaking in such a manner. The night was quiet while the bonfire rose. However, Chen Tong and the rest vaguely felt a powerful pressure when they looked at the smiling young man. Such a pressure was different from the ferocious aura that Little Flame purposely gave off. It was akin to a sharp blade that had not shown itself. Even a simple scabbard was unable to hide the astonishing sharpness that it contained. The words Lindong had said were indeed arrogant. This was especially under the precondition his initial profound death stage strength. However, none of the five great generals dared to have any doubts at this very moment. Chen Tong and the rest faced each other. Finally, they slowly nodded before cupping their hands towards Lindong and speaking in a deep voice, "As long as Brother Lindong can finish off Xu Song, we will be able to help deal with any additional trouble. At that time, Brother Yang will become the new demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain." Lindong looked at the five of them and nodded gently. He stood up and looked towards the night sky in the distance and the creeping ferocious beast like Deep Lightning Mountain as his eyes slightly narrowed. "Demon Commander He. I will meet you tomorrow." Deep Lightning Mountain Range was quite a famous place even in the entire Beast War region. The most important reason for this was that this was the place where one of the top 8 factions of the Beast War region, Deep Lightning Mountain, was located. As the big boss of this area, Deep Lightning Mountain ruled the massive area within tens of thousands of miles around Deep Lightning Mountain Range. All factions within this vast land were included under Deep Lightning Mountain. Deep Lightning Mountain was undoubtedly the overlord of this place. Today was clearly the most festive day in Deep Lightning Mountain over the entire year. Every year, Deep Lightning Mountain would hold a grand mountain gathering. Every gathering, the great generals who usually led their own subordinates on campaigns outside would all make an appearance. At the same time, those various large and small factions that were located within Deep Lightning Mountain's vast land would bring their tributes and pay homage. As such, the scope of this gathering was exceptionally grand. Hence, amazement could not help but flash across Lindong's eyes when he followed Little Flame into the territory of Deep Lightning Mountain Range and saw the various groups gathering from all directions. It seemed that this Deep Lightning Mountain was indeed rather impressive. Deep Lightning Mountain's territory stretches for tens of thousands of miles. There are countless factions of various sizes living within this territory. Although Deep Lightning Mountain ignores the fights between these factions, all of them must pay an annual tribute to Deep Lightning Mountain, Little Flame laughed and said upon seeing Lindong's surprised expression. Lindong nodded slightly. It was just like an empire. Deep Lightning Mountain was the royalty while the other factions were the subjects. They had to acknowledge the Deep Lightning Mountain as their leader in order to survive in this place. Otherwise, when Deep Lightning Mountain's army arrived, there would definitely be a bloody massacre. The strong devoured the weak. This was a never-changing rule in the demon region. The tiger-devouring army slowed down as they approached Deep Lightning Mountain. It slowly passed through like a black torrent, causing many to look over with terrified expressions. Anyone who lingered within the territory of Deep Lightning Mountain was familiar with this powerful fighting force. Some of the factions had even suffered quite a great loss at their hands. The pass which led into Deep Lightning Mountain was clearly heavily guarded. Many pairs of sharp eyes swept over the visitors entering Deep Lightning Mountain. The tiger-devouring army approached, causing the atmosphere in the pass to become tense. Those originally cold and sharp expressions of the armies in the pass turned a little uneasy. Their eyes contained great fear. "Ha ha, General Yang has arrived." Atop the towering checkpoint, a tanned-faced man with black scale armor covering his body looked down at the tiger-devouring army below. He cupped his hands together with a smiling face. "I believe that Brother Yang should be aware of the rules of Deep Lightning Mountain. All armies can only station themselves at the foot of Deep Lightning Mountain." Little Flame glanced at the man atop the pass. The corners of his mouth split open as he replied, "General Qian, is your Sky Crocodile army trying to stop my devouring tiger army?" The expression of the somewhat black atop the pass changed slightly. He laughed dryly. "What is General Yang talking about? I am merely following the rules. You can look for the demon commander if you have any objections." There were many people in the surroundings of the pass who were quietly speechless as they watched this scene. However, no one dared to speak. Everyone knew that General Yang and General Qian of Deep Lightning Mountain did not see eye to eye with each other. Back then, both parties had even fought against each other. However, the final result caught everyone by surprise. The Sky Crocodile army, which was known for its great fighting strength, had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of the newly established tiger-devouring army. It was also precisely after that battle did the tiger-devouring army gradually become known as the strongest army of Deep Lightning Mountain. Little Flame merely smiled faintly when he heard Qian Yi bringing Xu Shong's name out to suppress him. However, there was a murderous glint deep within his eyes. This Qian Yi was directly under Xu Shong. He would clearly be an obstruction if they wished to attack Xu Shong. "Devouring Tiger Army, listen up. Rest at the foot of the mountain." Little Flame waved his large hand and a thunderous cry sounded. "Understood." An orderly, low, and deep cry that contained an unconcealable baleful aura echoed, after which, the large devouring tiger army directly sat down on the spot. In this way, they blocked half of the pass. Qian Yi's expression was a little dark when he saw this. Little Flame's act clearly did not give him any face. "Big brother, let's go. We'll head to Deep Lightning Mountain." Little Flame leaped down from the huge beast and spoke smilingly to Lin Dong. "I?" Lin Dong nodded and also jumped down. "Wait, who is this person? Why does he appear so unfamiliar?" Qian Yi suddenly questioned from atop the pass. Little Flame suddenly lifted his head. His pair of scarlet tiger eyes revealed a murderous look as he stared at General Qian Yi and spoke in a threatening voice. "Do you really believe that I don't dare to kill you?" Qian Yi's expression changed as vigorous Yuan power surged from within his body. It was as though he was worried that the violent Little Flame would attack. "Ha ha, I am Lin Dong. General Yang and I are brothers. I hope to take this opportunity to meet Demon Commander." Lin Dong stopped Little Flame. After which, he laughed towards General Qian Yi. "Brother?" These words not only caused Qian Yi to be startled. The many leaders from the various factions around were also stunned as they look over. Since when did this ferocious tiger, who was numb to killing, have a brother? Moreover, from the looks of it, he was even a human. "This is my big brother." Little Flame coldly snorted. However, the expressions of the surrounding individuals changed when he spoke. When had they ever seen this arrogant and ferocious tiger, whom even the demon commander could not tame, willing to address someone as big brother? "Lin Dong? Are you the human who was rumored to have defeated the governor of Blood Python City?" Qian Yi frowned and recalled something before he suddenly asked. Some rumors about Lin Dong had spread and even he had heard about him. Lin Dong smiled and nodded. Qian Yi looked deeply at Lin Dong upon seeing this. He mused slightly before nodding with a smile. "Please ascend the mountain." Although he heard that Lin Dong had defeated that Cao Ying, the latter was merely a small city governor and could not be compared to Deep Lightning Mountain. This Lin Dong might have some ability, but he was far from being as threatening as Little Flame. "Thank you, General Qian Yi." Lin Dong cupped his hands together. After which, he and Little Flame crossed the tightly guarded pass. The both of them swiftly disappeared into the distance along the mountain path. General Chen looked at those two figures who had disappeared into the distance as both of his eyes narrowed. He called a subordinate over. "Report this matter to Demon Commander." "Humph. Let me see what tricks you can pull." General Chen laughed coldly towards the spot where the Lindong duo had disappeared after his subordinate withdrew. Deep Lightning Mountain was unusually tall. Many grand halls stood atop the mountain. Light formations appeared in the sky from time to time. It was the defensive measures of Deep Lightning Mountain. Presently, the main peak of Deep Lightning Mountain was already filled with a sea of people. Various noises gathered together and soared towards the clouds, seemingly tearing them apart. Lindong followed Little Flame as they dashed straight towards the tallest peak where an incomparably overbearing hall stood. A continuous stream of people continued to surge in. The mountain gathering of this Deep Lightning Mountain was indeed frighteningly grand. Little Flame was after all the top general of Deep Lightning Mountain. Hence, he directly led Lindong into the main hall under countless watching gazes before they headed straight for the grand seats right at the front and sat down. Little Flame was considered an important person who was only inferior to the demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain. Various pairs of eyes looked over the moment he sat down. After which, some of them turned towards Lindong as puzzled looks flashed across their eyes. It was likely that they were guessing Lindong's identity. However, Lindong chose to ignore these gazes. Both of his eyes slightly lowered, making himself appear akin to a meditating old monk. His quiet manner did not appear to match this noisy place. Several generals continued to appear soon after the Little Flame duo were seated. 5 of them were Chen Tong's group whom they had met last night. However, merely exchanged a brief look upon seeing the Little Flame duo. Subsequently, they took their own seats. Given Lindong's shrewd eyes, however, he was still able to see some anxiety. After all, what they planned to do today would cause a huge commotion within this Beast War region. Other than these 5 generals, Lindong also saw the 3 other generals who were considered Xu Shang's direct subordinates. One of them was General Chen whom they had met earlier. The other person also looked familiar. He was Mountain General Meng Shan, who had attempted to lead some men to the Nine-Tail village with the intention of capturing Lindong. This person had a somewhat gloomy face when he saw the Lindong duo. He let out a cold snort and took his seat. That last remaining great general was a beautiful woman with a pretty face and unusually sexy figure. On her beautiful pointed face was the tattoo of a cat. At a glance, she seemed to have a kind of wild beauty. Her appearance attracted many pairs of eyes. However, she completely ignored these gazes. Her eyes looked directly to the side of Lindong. Of course, if one wished to be more precise, she seemed to be looking at Little Flame. Something was not quite right with her gaze. It seemed to contain a hidden bitterness. Lindong lifted his brow slightly. After which, he glanced at Little Flame who had not even lifted his head and laughed. "What is the matter?" If someone else asked the question, Little Flame would likely ignore him. However, since Lindong was the one who asked, he could only helplessly reply, "I don't know, she is a troublesome woman to deal with. She was beaten by me once, after which, she kept on bugging me." "Is she directly related to Xu Shang?" Lindong asked in surprise. "Not really, she seems to be someone from the 9 Lives Heavenly Cat tribe. She owes Xu Shang a favor and is here to repay it," Little Flame explained. 9 Lives Heavenly Cat tribe. Lindong was startled. He was a little surprised that it was one of the 8 great king tribes. It seemed like this woman was not simple. "Hey, you beat me the last time and we agreed that we will spar again. After so long, why didn't you come and look for me?" The lady suddenly walked over while Lindong and Little Flame were softly conversing. She did not mince her words as she stared directly at Little Flame. This caused Lindong to be quite curious. He had met many beautiful women, but it was the first time he had met such a hot and bold one. Little Flame frowned and somewhat impatiently replied, "I have no time." "You?" The lady was clearly extremely haughty. Her eyebrows bunched together after receiving this reply from Little Flame. However, she quickly softened her stance and frowned as she glanced at Lin Dong and asked in an astonished manner, "You actually brought a human to join the mountain gathering?" "A human?" Lin Dong could see a strange meaning in her eyes. It was likely that she would have an urge to draw her weapon if Lin Dong was a woman. "This is my big brother." Little Flame's expression sunk. The lady was startled when she heard this. She was clearly aware of Little Flame's character. Even Xu Shong could not make him to submit. Yet, this fellow had actually acknowledged a big brother. Moreover, she could hear true respect and emotion from Little Flame's voice. This was the first time that she had seen this extremely ruthless man treat another person in such a manner. Hence, the lady's originally somewhat arrogant face swiftly became gentle in front of Lin Dong's somewhat teasing gaze. After which, she smiled towards the latter. "Big brother Lin Dong, this is the first time we have met. This younger sister is called Hua Miao." The surrounding people, including Chen Tong and the other great generals, had a change in expression when her words sounded. All of them had a strange expression in their eyes. Since when did this arrogant and seemingly untamable little wildcat become so refined? Lin Dong looked at the smiling face of the lady before him. After which, he glanced at the expressions of everyone around them. He involuntarily broke into a smile and nodded as he said, "Thank you for taking care of Little Flame." "Little Flame?" Hua Miao was taken aback. A strange smiling expression was revealed in her eyes as she looked to the side at Little Flame. She would never have imagined that this extremely ferocious-looking man, who caused one to feel some fear just from looking at him, would actually have such a cute nickname. "Big brother." Little Flame helplessly said. Lin Dong chuckled and said, "You even know about keeping your image now. All right, this is my brother, Lin Yang." Hua Miao nodded. Her eyes looked towards Little Flame as she spoke, "However, he does not need me to take care of him and I do not have the courage to do so either." Lin Dong could hear a little resentment within this lady's voice. He immediately grinned a little. It seemed like she was somewhat fond of Little Flame. "What nonsense are you sprouting in front of my big brother?" Little Flame frowned and spoke in a deep voice. Hua Miao pouted. She had been greatly infuriated by Little Flame's attitude. Immediately, she clenched her teeth violently, turned around and left. However, a faint voice was secretly transmitted into the ears of the Lin Dong duo as she turned around. "You should be careful today." Lin Dong's wine cup holding hand trembled slightly as both of his eyes faintly narrowed. It seemed that this Hua Miao was aware of something. Could it be that Xu Shong was really going to make a move on Little Flame today? Chilling murderous intent surged within Little Flame's scarlet eyes. However, he very quickly suppressed it. "That lady is pretty decent." Lin Dong placed his wine cup down and smilingly told Little Flame. "Big brother, what nonsense are you saying?" Little Flame was flustered by Lin Dong's words. Soon after, he bitterly smiled, "I do not have such intentions towards her. Moreover, we have yet to take our revenge. How can I have the mood to discuss such matters? Revenge is revenge. Although we must definitely have our revenge, we should also enjoy the things that we should enjoy." Lin Dong gently smiled and said. He lamented a little as he looked at Little Flame. The completely clueless stupid tiger that followed beside him before even developing a proper mind back then, had finally grown up. "Let's talk about this another time," Little Flame replied. His eyes focused as he grinned. However, it seems that this deep lightning mountain is destined to be in chaos today. Lin Dong nodded gently. It seems like Xu Shong was unable to hold on any longer. With the flow of time, the spacious large hall grew increasingly lively. Most of those who could enter this place were the leaders of various reputable factions in Deep Lightning Mountain. There were also existences on the level of the city governor of Blood Python City around. However, they were clearly only akin to props today. Dong! A deep bell suddenly rang amidst the lively atmosphere within the large hall. The entire hall gradually became quiet as many pairs of eyes successively looked towards the throne at the end of the hall. "Ha ha, today is the mountain gathering of my Deep Lightning Mountain. Thank you all for joining. I, Xu Zhong, will first thank everyone here. A hearty laughter suddenly thundered across the large hall. Suddenly, a black light shot in from outside the hall and headed directly for the throne. The black light condensed as a black wind blew, revealing a well-built figure that sat grandly on the throne. Mighty lightning seemed to surge in his eyes as they swept over the place, frightening one's very soul. "Welcome, Demon Commander." A respectful greeting echoed in the hall after the black-robed man appeared on the throne. "Is this the ruler of Deep Lightning Mountain and one of the 8 great demon commanders in the Beast War region, Shu Song?" Lin Dong's eyes looked towards the throne at this moment. The strong and well-built of the man was not inferior to that of Little Flame. He wore a black robe and had a somewhat craggy face. There was the dignified and stern look of someone who was in a position of power for a long time. However, it was still possible to see a ruthless expression deep within those eyes. This appearance did not put the name of the demon commander to shame. Lin Dong could sense Little Flame lean slightly forward when Shu Song appeared. That appearance was like the prelude to a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. Lin Dong extended his hand and gently patted Little Flame. The smile on his face allowed the latter's tense body to gradually relax. "Ha ha, today is a rare grand event of my Deep Lightning Mountain. No one shall leave until they are drunk." A look of enjoyment flashed across his eyes as Shu Shering smilingly looked upon the grand sight of everyone respectfully greeting him, and he heartily laughed. "Demon Commander is a brilliant master." Praise was successively emitted from below. Those eyes, which were looking at Shu Song, had some fear in them. It was likely that the name of one of the 8 great commanders was indeed quite intimidating. Shu Song laughed loudly. He waved his large hand and female singing servants carried wine jars and shuttled through the hall. The atmosphere of the hall was quite lively. "This Deep Lightning Mountain of mine is inseparable from my 9 great generals, and this annual celebration cannot be done without them. Bestow upon them wine." Shu Song swept his gaze over the place as the atmosphere became extremely lively. Suddenly, he looked at the 9 great generals below him. His eyes paused momentarily on Lin Dong and Little Flame before shifting away. "This king shall offer all of you a toast. Another year of campaigning has been hard on all of you." Shu Song lifted his wine jar and laughed. The 9 people below slightly inclined their heads. They held the wine cups in front of them before draining the cups in a single gulp. Lin Dong had a calm expression while watching this scene. Shu Song clearly possessed some skill in order to become a demon commander. If it was not because Lin Dong was aware that the latter had placed the deep dark ghost seal onto Little Flame and the others to control them, this mannerisms of Shu Song would really somewhat convince everyone. Unfortunately. "Ha ha, this must be the Lin Dong who defeated the governor of Blood Python City, Cao Ying, right? You are indeed a talent. No wonder even someone like General Yan calls you big brother." Shu Song put down the jar of wine in his hand. He suddenly looked at Lin Dong, who was beside Little Flame, and laughed. At this moment, several pairs of eyes also shot over from within the large hall. Whispers spread when they heard this name. It was likely that they did not find it unfamiliar. "Demon Commander flatters me. Beating Cao Ying was mere luck." Lin Dong smiled a little as he replied. Shu Song chuckled. He shot a glance at Lin Dong before turning towards Little Flame. He was clearly aware of Little Flame's arrogance, and it was likely that this Lin Dong was not an ordinary person. However, Shu Song was clearly more focused on Little Flame. Given his strength, he did not think that an initial profound death stage human would be able to pose much of a threat towards him. Even though this human was far from simple, Shu Song, was someone simple either? He stared at Little Flame while great greed surged deep within his eyes. The latter also seemed to have detected this and slowly raised his head. Those scarlet tiger eyes faced Shu Song without giving in. Both pairs of tiger eyes looked at each other as the atmosphere slowly stiffened at this moment. A hidden murderous aura flashed across both of their eyes. The face-off between the two was quickly detected by some of the sharper individuals, and their faces quickly changed. They could vaguely detect an unusual atmosphere. The noise in the hall had become a lot quieter without anyone realizing. Chen Tong and the rest quietly put down the wine cups in their hands as the muscles all over their bodies tensed while perspiration surfaced on their backs. Anxiety flashed across Huan Miao's eyes as she watched this scene. She did not expect that her previous reminder was completely ineffective. This stupid tiger still dared to oppose Xu Shong in such a fashion. She glanced at Lin Dong. At this moment, it seemed that the only one who could stop Little Flame was him. However, she was speechless to find that Lin Dong appeared as though he completely oblivious to this strange atmosphere. All the latter did was lower his head and stare at the wine cup in his hand. "Ha ha, General Yang is still so bold. You are indeed worthy of being the top general under me." Xu Shong finally took the lead to smile and speak during the face-off. The corners of Little Flame's mouth parted as he replied, "Since Demon Commander thinks that we have made such a great contribution, I wonder if you will agree to a request of mine." Xu Shong's eyes hardened. He smiled faintly and asked, "What request does General Yang have? Feel free to mention it. Remove the deep dark ghost seals on our bodies." Little Flame slowly said. The smile on Xu Shong's face slowly withdrew. His body leaned forward slightly and both of his hands were placed on his knees. His entire body was filled with a frightening pressure as he stared at Little Flame and said, "General Yang, are you trying to test the limits of this king's patience? Do you think that this king will continue to tolerate you?" Dense murderous desire that could not be hidden finally surged within Little Flame's scarlet tiger eyes. "Xu Shong, both of us are well aware of the situation. Why the need to be such a hypocrite? Isn't the reason why you used the deep dark ghost seal to keep me in Deep Lightning Mountain is because you wish to have the other half of the essence blood inheritance within my body?" The entire huge hall quickly turned deathly silent. Shock was revealed in the eyes of those leaders from the various factions as they watched the changing atmosphere. Was this scene the breakup of the upper echelons of Deep Lightning Mountain? The mountain gathering today had become a little different from usual. However, it was a little surprising that General Yang was bold enough to provoke Xu Shong in such a manner. After all, regardless of how great the ferocious name of General Yang was, it was still rather lacking when compared to this renowned demon commander. Xu Shong's expression was dark. He stared at Little Flame as his hands slowly clenched tightly. Soon after, he spoke in a cold voice, "This king is really curious. You only knew how to hide from me in the past. Why is it that you dare to act in such a manner today? Could it be that you believe that you have found some support?" After his final word sounded, Xu Shong's eerie eyes turned towards Lin Dong, who had been quietly standing beside Little Flame. Many pairs of eyes began to shift within the huge hall. After which, they looked at Lin Dong in a doubtful manner. Was it because of Lin Dong's presence that General Yang dared to directly challenge Demon Commander Xu Shong? However, was an initial profound death stage human actually able to give General Yang such courage? Was this even possible? Bang! Lin Dong gently placed the wine cup in his hand down under the many watching eyes. Soon after, he slowly lifted his head. Those black pupils of his stared at Xu Shong on the throne as a soft voice was emitted. "Demon Commander Xu Shong, I do not have any objections with regards to Little Flame remaining in Deep Lightning Mountain to fight for you, and I can even accept that you have snatched half of the essence blood inheritance." Lin Dong paused after speaking to this point. An almost corporeal violent murderous intent unfurled like a storm within his eyes. However, you should never ever have planted the deep dark ghost seal on him in an attempt to control and threaten him. Lin Dong smiled at the cold-looking Xu Shong, revealing his sinisterly white teeth. "It is not up to trash like you to control my brother. Hence, today shall be the day that I shall demand repayment from you." The entire place was quiet. Everyone were completely stupefied. This video will end here.